Howard Cosell. So if you can put your Howard Cosell voice on for a minute, here's my first question. I know you're a Baltimore Oriole fan. Tell me how you think the offseason has gone so far for the Orioles.
As Howard Cosell?
Yes.
Oh, okay. First of all, the city of Baltimore is a proud inner harbor city, reconstructed over the famous great years of Edward Bennett Williams, but now, Peter Angelos, a man of conscience. But of late, Andy McPhail has put together an infield, notwithstanding some of the others we've seen in years past, not great. This one apparently has power at every position, with Derek Lee at first base, a rehabbing and healthy Brian Roberts, at shortstop, J.J. Hardy. You gotta like that. And at third base, Mark Reynolds, who strikes out more than you'd like, but could put up 30 to 40 home runs. So in point of fact, the Baltimore Orioles infield is vastly improved. That's all.
Phenomenal, Howard Cosell, as well as Roy Parker.
Now, I called you guys for some questions.
Go ahead, Roy.
Now, this is curious to me. I want to know if there's been a little bit of spice between Jim and Andy McPhail over the years. And here's why I bring it up. Because Andy went out of his way. He never talks to the media when there's trades brewing or things. He's very close to the best. And he went out of his way to say the report from Jim was inaccurate. And then, of course, Jim returned volley later on. This is what I was told, that said perhaps if they lose Guerrero, Andy's ego may have gotten in the way. I'm not trying to stir it up a little bit for you, Jim, but I want to know if there's been a little spice between the two of you over the years.
Well, here's what took place. The reality is, my source a year ago told me that Vladimir was going to sign with the Texas Rangers. And I took the same kind of criticism, and a week later he signed with the Texas Rangers. So obviously this is a source that I trust. This is a source that is getting the information directly from the player. That Friday, Vernon Wells was traded, as you know, from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Angels. And Vladimir Guerrero, at the end of the day, had three options. He was hoping to return to Texas or maybe go back to the Angels. His third option was Baltimore, a very limited market for Vladimir. When that deal took place, my source said that Vladimir said, you know what, I'm going to have to, unfortunately, accept a humbling deal with Baltimore because that's going to be the only place that I'm going to get to play every day as a designated hitter. That's going to be my fit, and I'm going to take a humbling deal. So after my source told me that, I went on Twitter, and all I said was basically that Vladimir Guerrero was prepared to was close to taking a humbling deal with Baltimore. And I put that out there only because my source got it directly from Vladimir, and I stand behind my source because he got it right a year ago. Then Andy came out and denied it. Well, you know, my theory in all this is that probably Vladimir's viewpoint hadn't gotten to the agent, hadn't gotten to Andy to negotiate yet. And I still think he's going to end up in Baltimore, and I still think it's going to be a humbling deal, and I think everything Vladimir said a year ago came true, and I believe this is going to come true as well. And in terms of the other part, it's hard when you're a GM and you turn broadcaster, Roy, because once you cross that line, it's very difficult because as a GM, you like confidentiality from the other 29 GMs, and you don't like information coming out. When you have a GM in broadcasting, unfortunately, you are now on the other side, and you're in a different place, and you have different responsibilities. And I had no problem with Andy coming out and saying what he did because, in truth, what he was saying is, from the Orioles' perspective, they weren't close to a deal with Baltimore, so he came out and denied it. And I think he did the right thing as the president of the Orioles. And I still think that what I had heard from my source is still going to take place. It just is going to take a little bit longer than probably the process should.
What about the line about his ego may have gotten in the way if a deal doesn't take place?
Well, it doesn't seem like it. Andy's usually very professional and usually doesn't comment. And so, you know, my whole thinking was that he would just be quiet and keep grinding it out, keep negotiating a deal, and then announce Vladimir. And so, you know, all I said is now you're in a situation where I think he knows he has all the leverage. I think he knows that Vladimir doesn't have a lot of options. And so he can sit there and put the low ball offer out there and say, if you want it, here it is, but this is all I've got for you. All I'm saying is this is a deal that should be made by both parties. Vladimir wants to be an Oriole. The Oriole wants him. And I think at this point, the deal's there to be made. Let's get it made, put him in a uniform, have the press conference, and watch a much improved lineup with Vladimir in it.
What do you make of this he has an $8 million offer on the table, they're saying.
I'm not buying it, but, I've been in the business a long time. There's always a mystery team, or there's always another offer somewhere because I've heard many times from an agent, well, he's got $8 million on the table, but if you can bring your offer up to $5 million, he'll take $3 million less to go with you. I mean, how many times have I heard that as a GM? I mean, till it makes me, throw up. To me, I don't think he's got a lot of options out there. I think that the door in Texas after the Napoli deal is shut, and I think the Angel deal is cracked open only if he wants to be a part-time DH. I don't think that's completely open either. So to play every day, I think he's got one choice. I think it's Baltimore or Baltimore.
Well, I have just two more questions. I know you guys got to move on. First of all, if a guy has an $8 million offer, or so he says, why doesn't he just take it? I mean, I don't understand the whole point of that. At some point after 24 hours, the other gentleman has just got to say, well, then take the $8 million offer. Why would it still be out there, quote unquote?
I'm sure Andy's told the agent to take the $8 million. He doesn't have it out there, I don't think.
One other question is for you or Casey, but I want to know, they signed Dutcher yesterday for, $750 minimum and possibly about $1.2, $1.3 if he makes the roster, which he should. How do they, and what you would know this better than anybody, how do scouts or GMs or personnel people judge a player who's coming off of hip surgery throwing in December as a viable risk? I mean, what can you see in a guy throwing in December or early January that makes you want to sign even for $1 million?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of risk there. I mean, I couldn't believe Ben Sheets got $10 million a year ago from Oakland. I mean, based on what? I mean, they're high risk, and a guy can throw. I mean, Chin Ming Wang, when the Nationals signed him a year ago, Ned Coletti and the Dodgers said he couldn't even throw in the parking lot. And yet he went and he got another $1 million this year. So, look, it's big risk. And I think what happens is teams that don't have the farm system ready, teams that can't make the trades to get more pitching, you end up, trying to get lightning in a bottle. And you take bigger risks because what are the alternatives? Not a lot of choices left on the open market right now. And I think a little bit's a hope and a prayer. And at the end of the day, it's a $750,000 risk if it doesn't work out.
Roy, we always love make sure don't be such a stranger, okay? Call him more often, all right?
All right, fellas. Thanks for taking the time, and thanks for letting me do my Cosell for you.
Always a pleasure. Roy Firestone, great stuff. Great to have him on board. And anytime anybody's listening, feel free to chime in. Celebs involved in the game, whatever the case is. Love to hear from you at